Good afternoon, everyone. This is John Stevenson with Nevada Partners, and we are doing another installment of the Nehemiah Project Podcast. And we are honored this morning to have, alongside with Bishop Derek Rimpson and myself, a fresh, brand new, newly minted Assemblymember Jovan Jackson. Sir, pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be in the space with the bishop and to be on this podcast and, and to be the guest of honor, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right. So what's it like what was your first holidays like, with this brand new moniker of Assembly Member?
So it was.
I hope you got nice gifts because of it. Like, hey.
No, I had some cheap Chinese food on New Year's Eve. I got sick the next day. I just spent it with family. I think a lot of people think once you become an elected official that you get like these superpowers out of nowhere. Don't too much change, but you have more influence, and you definitely have more of a say over the community.
Yeah, I would have a terrible time not power tripping. I'd walk around the house and say, no one is allowed to make eye contact with me until the legislation session's over. I can be seduced into the dark side with that kind of recognition.
It has its good moments. I know I went to go visit Mr. Walker for his retirement, and
Mr. Walker. Now, who? Mr. Walker.
I'm gonna mess up his first name, but he just retired from the Air Force.
Okay.
Martin Walker.
Okay. Yeah.
And they had a special seat reserved for me. It said Assemblyman Jackson on
it.
Okay. And it had the Air Force logo on it, and the military people, they gotta salute you, and that was pretty fun.
So that was like your first formal kind of wearing the new crest, the new hat, the title.
Yeah. They gave me a little badge. This is all they give us, really.
Yeah,
we get a little badge. That's it.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. Okay. We'll have to bedazzle that thing, put some jewels on, like around the edge of it, stuff like that. Because you need a scepter, So yeah,
red shoes.
Right, exactly, and a long flowing cape. Yeah. I would take it too far. I already know, So you are, clearly your humbleness is going to pay off well in this new role. Because I don't know if I've got it. So, Bishop, how was your holidays?
Mine was great.
All right, do tell.
Mine was great. Family, basically. And of course, I don't know if you guys are chitlin eaters, but
no.
We brought in the new year with chitlins and pig feet and black eyed peas. Of course, that's the black culture's tradition. So, but yeah, we hung out with family for Christmas and for the new year, and New Year's going well. And as Assemblyman said, man, Nevada's probably one of the safest place to be right now with all that's really going on in our country and in
Thoughts and prayers to California.
Man, and we sending out shout outs and prayers to them. I know so many people that have been affected by many of the fires, especially in the Pasadena, Altadena fire area, churches that have been lost and houses that have been lost. People have lost everything. So we're definitely praying for them, doing our part to see what we can do to help and to send aid and those kind of things to help those that's in California. So yet praying for them. I know Texas, Dallas got snow, and Atlanta got snow, and Nashville got snow, and of course, them as places don't get, snow like that. So, I'm kind of like, Assemblyman Jackson, man. Right now, Nevada's probably about the best place to be now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, thanks for asking. How about yourself? How was yours?
Just busy. Actually, I did a lot of recovering, because it was a busy year. And I found myself recovering more than I thought I would. Did some cooking. I did my rotisserie prime rib, for the family, stuff like that. So I'm good at that kind of stuff. And so that turned out pretty good. But I found myself, needing almost like a Sabbath day kind of for the whole holiday, just kind of recover.
Yeah.
I suppose it's a good thing.
That's a great thing, man. R&R is always a good thing.
Right. Right.
When you can get that in. I was thinking just a couple of days ago, and I shared this with somebody, I had got to a point where I was just like walking around bored. And I kept saying, man, I'm bored. This is nothing to do. And then I thought about it. I said, bored is good because that's, you're resting. You're getting a chance to pull back.
Especially as busy as you keep through the year. As busy as you keep through the year, you do need a recovery.
Absolutely. So the R&R is good, man. This guy's definitely about to find out.
I have not been bored.
I hope you are rested up.
This guy here, you talking about he's going to be on the go and on the move. And
it gets cold in Nevada.
And then it's cold in Nevada. Yeah.
Not this part of Nevada.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Up north.
Yeah.
It's gonna be free.
Yeah. So, Assemblymember, just to give you some idea, when we come together on this for this podcast, it can be pretty sprawling, and it could be whatever's on your heart, on your mind. We can we're flexible enough to go with where the conversation is leading. So, enjoy it, relax. We'll chat. All this stuff. So right out of the gate, where I'm curious is, what are some of the grand hopes and aspirations that you have? As you come into this role, what is it you really want for the community? Really want for you?
Most definitely. I know I ran a campaign fighting for criminal justice reform, affordable housing, and mental health care. And I know I went door to door, saying this is what I will advocate for. So I wanted to make sure my legislation reflected that. And, it's easy to get elected and people say, oh, no, you got to focus on this. You got to focus on that. But I felt I campaigned off these issues.
Right.
So I need to carry some legislation around these issues. So I had big hopes and aspirations. I really did. I was really hoping to get the similar legislation like in Michigan with the clean slate, where after a certain amount of time, they automatically expunge your record if you have a criminal record, which allows people to, attain employment, attain housing, get resources, and keep folks out of prison ultimately. But Nevada, comes to find out, doesn't even have expungements. We only have ceilings, and there's a lot of boundaries. So a lot of things that I wanted to do, you have to come to like a middle ground and find some type of bearing with it. So I do have one bill that I'm excited to introduce around criminal justice reform, and that's the automatic sealing of arrest records for people who were found not guilty, who were charges were dismissed. Basically, these folks were arrested, found not guilty, but they still live with the arrest records. And a lot of time, employers, they will look at that. You got arrested for robbery, even though you were not guilty, wasn't charged, it's still used against you.
Right.
So looking for the automatic sealing so people don't have to live with that burden, and also so they don't have to. Most folks, like, you could get it off your record, but you got to get a lawyer. That costs money, and not everyone has that. So excited and just trying to find balance in all of it.
Gotcha. So a question I'm gonna pose to both of you guys. In light of the fact that President Trump today, was convicted, with his felonies, yet he's going to become our first, president with convictions. As from you guys' take, is this kind of an offhanded positive step in that it goes along the way of destigmatizing, the notion of having a felony and saying that felony or not, you have a place to participate. I'm not saying whether or not Trump as a president generally is good or bad. That's not the point of that. The point being is, when you bring up the issue of how we look at somebody with, a felony in the criminal justice system, being able to say, no, you can still participate in our political process. Do you see that as a potential positive, that maybe we didn't see? For both you guys.
You want to pop it off? Okay. That's a good question.
It is. Thank you.
A great question. And I think we gave too much credit to Trump, calling him a felon, and we did this whole thing, felon versus prosecutor. And I think the term felon means something in the Black community and the minority community. It means that you were someone that may have been struggling and going through a life circumstance, and you end up incarcerated because you were trying to provide means for your family or yourself. And that means something in certain communities.
Right.
But when we look at Donald Trump and the type of felonies that he has is it's around political power, political gain. And it's a selfish way. It's not for survival.
Right. Okay.
He's not oppressed. It's so I just want to make those two things very separate. These are so
that's a good point.
It
is nuanced. It is nuanced.
Yeah, just to start off there. So I will be the first formerly incarcerated person elected into Nevada. I am a felon. I'll be the seventh one elected in the United States as a state lawmaker. But what that means to me is that I committed a crime. I went to jail. I was convicted by a judge. I took my punishment. I went to prison away from my family and loved ones. I had to be released in a system that works against me daily. Hard to get employment, housing, a higher education, but I still find a way to prevail and do good and give back to my community. So I think it's good that Donald Trump is changing the stigma and he is motivating people to run for office. Like, just that's the truth. And that's why, we seen that division, because people like, well, I have a felon, he a felon, I could run for office. And people say the same thing about me, but we got to look at people values and their accountability in the criminal justice system.
Well put.
Yeah. Excellent. I think that's a tremendous response, because what it kind of shares is it shows a sense of grace, if you will, another chance. And everyone has a right to have a chance or even another opportunity. I think it's admirable that Assembly Jackson can share with us, and be transparent. Because I think that goes a long way. I think, as he stated and stated, when we look at Trump, however, I think we're looking at more of a power thing, a power base. And then if you're going to, you get the opportunity, you get the fair chance, right? Then you have to consider some things. You have to consider now, if the law was allowed for you to have this chance, then what do you do for the next guy? Right. It's unfair for you to be exonerated from this, but then the next guy comes along and you literally want to literally eradicate him and destroy him. So I think we now talk about balance and we talk about fairness across the board. What applies over here at some point should apply over here. And if I got a whole lot of things that I can say about the policies of President Trump or Trump elected to be elected Trump again, 47. But, as you said, that wasn't a personal, it's not a personal attack on him personally. We could go all across the board, but I think it's a fairness. I think justice has to be fair. Now, if you commit the crime, you of course you'll do the time, but the time should not always totally send people totally up the river for life. Right. Especially if it's not a crime of a violent crime. If it's a crime, a white collar crime, you might have to do a year here, a year there, a few months, whatever the case may be. But at some point, that record, as you continue to evolve as a citizen and you come back and you give to the community and you show proof that you are, you have a heart, you've changed, you've shifted, and we all have messed up. We've all made mistakes, man. And but what do you do after the fact? And if there's proof that you're evolving, you're shifting, you're doing better, you're impacting your community, you're serving the community, serving people, then at that point there should be a resolve, there should be expungement, and then allow this person to continue to move forward. And so I think with Assembly Jackson, I think, man, he's a prime example of that. He's a prime example of grace. He's a prime example of another chance. Right. And God gives us that. He constantly gives us that. We talk about the God of a second chance, but if the truth be told, he's a God that's so gracious. He constantly keeps giving us another chance. And that could be the 5th chance, the 12th chance, the 17th chance. Right. He's constantly extending grace to us. And so here we are.
Yeah. Because to that point, when you bring up grace implies that the person receiving the grace is either being afforded or given back their sense of humanity.
Sure, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
if today was one of those watershed moments that brings back humanity, towards people who are in the justice system and convicted felons and the like, I can't be mad at that.
Right.
If that's what happens. So with that, Assembly, you had mentioned something about that your legislative priorities were in mental health, and with the you said mental health, affordable housing, and I want to tease out what you mentioned about the criminal justice side of it. What are some of what are some of your early thoughts of how you want to approach the criminal justice pieces legislatively?
So I want to focus on sealing of records. I think.
At what age and in what circumstances would you want to see them sealed more often?
Well, initially, with the bill that I'm introducing, it's for those who charges were dismissed or innocent, and that's also for juveniles too, because juveniles also have the same thing that occurs, that they have these arrest records, and the schools could access these records and use it against them. So initially, that's what I'm proposing, but the bigger vision is to one day have automatic sealing for convicted folks, people with records, people that were found guilty,
right?
And because once you're released from prison and you have stayed out of trouble for X amount of years, it definitely shows that you have rehabilitated. And how do you truly rehabilitate yourself if you don't have the opportunity to, access housing, access employment,
right,
access higher education?
Right.
So to me, it's like you're being constantly punished for something that you already been punished for.
Right.
Like I went to prison, went through all these things, and then I lived with a record for 5 years and I'm still being punished. So like Bishop Remsen said, there's folks, need a second, third, fourth chance. And that's just how life is. So initially, but I know how legislation works. You have to start off, somewhere, and then you have your bigger vision. And my bigger vision is to, have the clean slate law, like in Michigan, where people get their record not just automatically sealed, but automatically expunged.
What's the difference between sealed and expunged?
Judge Mathis is a prime example. Judge Mathis was, he did a lot of things, criminally coming up in Detroit. When most of people see him, they associate his show with Chicago, but he's actually a Detroit boy. And so, of course, he did a whole lot of stuff, man. It had, a laundry list of, crimes that he had served time for, probation, so forth. And eventually, he turned his life around, man. He got his GED, and then as he continued to evolve, because as Jovan is saying, Michigan has that expunge from your record. So he was able to eventually get his record expunged, and that's how he was able to go to law school and then become a judge for 36th District Court. And then, of course, he, matriculated to the Judge Mathis show. But again, I think and especially in the African American community, or the Black and brown community, we we make mistakes, and man, they throw us under the jail. Now, the reality is, and if we be truthful on the matter, if you took a Barack Obama and put him in the same shoes as a Donald Trump, this would be a whole different spin. You know what I'm saying? Obama would be somewhere we couldn't find him because he would be under the jail, right? But again, power, money, sometimes it can be who it is. Sometimes it can be the color of your skin. But in our community, we should have at least an opportunity for those that come back and they're rehabilitated. They serve the time, they serve the punishment, and they're coming out to do. But if you don't have these necessities, as Jovan is saying, you don't have the necessities, you don't have the resources available, you don't have housing, right? So now I've got to become creative somehow to try to figure out how I'm going to live, where I'm going to live. Right. If I don't have, a job, now, okay, how do I feed my family? How do I take care? So now again, I'm going to be creative. And if my way of feeding my family and surviving then pushes me into this negative direction, then okay, what can you do? Right. But if you give me the resources, you give me an opportunity, you give me a fair shake, then man, now I have more of a drive to do what's right and positive because I'm in that position.
Yeah. And Judge Mathis is a great example. I know you asked, what's the difference between sealing and expungement. So expungement it's like it almost like it never existed. It never happened. In Nevada, we don't have that. We have sealing. So when you seal a record, law enforcement agencies could still access those records and use it against you. So say if you were trying to become a judge, they may open your record, right? But when you have your record expunged, then you could become a judge regardless. Gotcha. Judge Matthew used to be a felon, but he was able to get his record expunged and become a judge.
Gotcha. So in the Michigan model, do they have a way that separates out the different kinds of ways you can have felony? Like, for example, there's felonies attached to a violent act, some that are attached to a non-violent act, some attached to like a sexual act. Do they? Is there different gradations, for the different kinds of felonious crimes? How do they do it in Michigan?
Yeah, so there is a breakdown. So not all the crimes are automatically expunged. So if you do have like a sex-related crime, that one's not automatically expunged. I believe murders are not automatically expunged. So there is some type of exclusion. I do not know the exact details, but it covers the majority. Like if you had a robbery or a burglary, those type of crimes are being expunged.
Gotcha. So have you put any thoughts as to how you would want to, tease out the different grades for those kind of crimes in your legislation? Or is it too soon to know exactly yet? Or are you still working that out?
Well, I want to focus on this session. So the bill that I'm proposing is, if you were considered innocent, if it was murder or petty larceny, you were found innocent, you were found not guilty. So why should it be on the record? So that's the angle that I'm coming in.
So those are arrests without convictions you're talking about?
Yeah, for the bill that I'm proposing.
Okay.
For sealing. So these are folks that were arrested and were found not guilty, but they still live with these records. And
gotcha.
These records are still used against them, even though they were never guilty of a crime.
Gotcha. So it's the arrest record alone that's the problem in those cases. Gotcha. So switching to the other topics, as far as let's say we'll go with the mental health component. What are some of the challenges that spurred you on to say, look, I've got to get involved, politically or otherwise, to help solve this one problem or these three problems? What are some of the problems that you wanted to solve? And then I'm going to try to ask you how you intend to solve them. So what were those issues? And then we'll pivot into, the how of to go about solving them legislatively.
Right. So when you look at my issues, housing, criminal justice reform, mental health care, they kind of all correlate in a way, because if someone is having a poor mental health and they're having a mental breakdown or a crisis, more than likely they're going to end up in the jail.
Crime is close by, yes.
The jail is the biggest mental health provider in the state of Nevada.
Not even close. There's no close second either.
So yeah, I care about mental health care because I know where it could lead to. And if we look at proactive measures like free mental health care, which may sound radical, but it's a lot more cheaper than throwing people in jail and not having no type of solution. So I really feel like all these issues correlate with each other, and on top of housing, because, you know, if you can't house someone that's having a mental breakdown, then, you know, they're going to end up on the streets. And so they all correlate, but more speaking toward the legislation that I'm carrying, the coming as a freshman, so you don't have too much, you don't got too much seniority. So I am doing a mental health care.
So how many bills? I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but no, how many bills can you carry, or how many bills are you allowed to
so we have to submit 5 bills, and then we get one more bill right before session. So a total of 6 bills that we can carry. Doesn't mean you have to carry all 6, but as a freshman legislator, we are able to carry up to 6. So right now, every freshman legislator should have 5 bill ideas, you know, at the maximum that they have submitted to Legislation Bureau.
Okay. So with the bill you're looking to advance on the mental health side, and allowing for the fact that you are a freshman, and so the network, the legislative and political networks aren't there for you at the assembly just yet. What then can the community offer and by way of supports? And when you answer what you think is, I'm going to pivot that to you, Bishop, to see how you think we can help solve for whatever his ask might be of the community.
Right. So the bill that I'm carrying around mental health is called Schools and Community Wellness. I actually just did a workshop with the Delta Academy with Dr. Fredericks, and basically it's to promote community wellness, mental health wellness with our schools. And so what does that look like without having a financial impact on the state? So, and that was what our workshop was about. So we basically workshopped this bill, and we came to the conclusion that we want schools to have quarterly assemblies around mental health awareness, and have actually resources available at these assemblies, and also like different ways to engage and with resources, where that they should be visible in the school on the website and should be updated regularly, and also that how schools should do more with connecting with peer-to-peer services and just outpatient services. So that's what the bill kind of looks like. And I know it's not like the greatest solution, but you have to sometimes create a method where it doesn't have a financial impact, but it's still empowering somehow.
Right. Gotcha. So how can the community be rallied to support the assembly, the legislation that you're considering advancing?
Right. So if you go on to Nellis, it's LELIS. That's our legislation website, and it has all the bills listed. It'll have an assembly side, it'll have a Senate side. The bill that says if you're interested about criminal justice reform, there's the Judicial Committee. So you could click on the Judicial Committee. It shows all the bills that they have.
Gotcha.
So my bills will also be listed on that Nellis website. And I know not everyone has the ability to go up to session and testify on a bill and be there in the physical, but you could make a comment on the bill, and the more support that the bill has, the more likely it'll get passed through the committee. So if they see 100 people are in favor of this bill online and there's no opposition or a little opposition, they'll be like, okay, let's move this bill through committee so it could get on the floor. So it's really from the community. I need people testifying on bills, supporting bill, commenting on bills, and contacting these. We're not really educated on the different committees, but every committee has a chair. So I need the community to put pressure on the chairs of all these committees if there's a bill that they like in that committee.
Gotcha.
Like the Second Look At is a great example.
So Bishop, that said, how do we throw some support behind these topics? What are some early tactics and strategies that popped to your mind?
Well, Jovan, we just recently, maybe about last year, 2 months or so ago, we put together a forum for him to come in, talk with
forum or forum.
A forum.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he could talk to almost kind of like a listening session where he could come share his bills and what he's doing and what's on his heart and his mind. And so we were able to get many of our leaders of many of the focus groups, the pastors, and they came out to hear and to share. Okay. He was allowed to share. He was allowed to give to them, what he's carrying and why he's carrying it. And I think he did a fantastic job. He had great interaction and great participation. And so naturally, we're doing our part, as one of the pastors and leaders here, we're doing our part to involve the community and then get them to become familiar with the assemblyman for this district. He's new, so of course he's coming in as a freshman. He needs the support. Yes. He needs the help. And we want to do our part. So we're going to continue to keep building and creating such community involvement so that he can be present. That was one of the reasons why I thought it would be great to bring him on the podcast, right? So that he could share and people could hear in the community. And as he stated, he needs voices. He needs people to stand with the bills that he is presenting. I had the opportunity in the last session. I was down at Grant Sawyer building all the time. I was getting a phone call or a text message, right? And you need to be here. Senator Neal, she would, if it was important, man, I'll get this text. I need you to, we're going to do it at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock. So I would rally the troops, as many that I could get, pass the text along. And so we need to do the same thing for Assemblyman Jackson. I'm going to definitely do my part to help, to support, and find where we need to go. As he said, now, the opportunity back then in the last session, we could go to the Grant Sawyer building. I think that has shifted and changed. It's a new location, but we're definitely going to find out where that location is. And of course, you don't have to go up to Carson City, the 8-hour trip, but, up the street, down the street, round the block, wherever that location is. And your voice is heard just as impactful on the mic, or you can call in, as he's saying. You can go to the Nellis website. You can tap into, put your comments in, say that you're for the bill or against the bill, depending on what that bill looks like. And that's how we support him. And so we're going to continue to do it. We're trying our best to get many of the pastors in this community more engaged and involved. Even as a sidebar, we just had a session with the meeting with the sheriff just on, I want to say yesterday, at the Wealthy Place, the sheriff, the undersheriff. And of course, we were meeting in reference to the shooting of the guy that happened, the house owner. I can't remember his name right now. I think it was Brandon something, that just recently got shot, was killed by the police officer. He was the homeowner in the home. And so, of course, the sheriff was so graciously glad to come out and to share and to be transparent. And so, again, we had about 35 pastors. I think at his event, we had about maybe 20 or so that was at that event. So we're getting good momentum, getting good involvement there. I must say, Jovan is excited. He is so excited and elated to have this opportunity to serve. He's such a humble guy and transparent. And he really has a love and a passion for his community. And so he has just sparked this excitement, man. And so now leaders and focus group leaders and pastors really want to be in his space and really want to hear him talk. And he's getting that opportunity. So we're going to continue to keep, pressing and pushing for that.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Last topic then. Let's talk a little bit about your ideas around affordable housing. What does that mean? Like what level of income are we talking about? What part of the, geographically, what area are you thinking about, with that? Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Okay, let's dive into it. Affordable housing. Nevada is going through a housing crisis. We are one of the most expensive places to live in the nation right now. Based off income, it is more expensive to rent here in Nevada compared to California. And that is not the Nevada I grew up in. That's not the Las Vegas I grew up in. We live with Nevada means home. And for me, home meant $500 rent at one period of time in life. And that is not the reality. Years ago, that was enough money for you to buy a home, and that we're able to vote on legislation. So any bill that comes forward that advocates for affordable housing, I'm going to support. But I am carrying a bill that is a solution, one of many solutions to affordable housing. And so the bill idea that I have is basically streamlining ADUs, accessory dwelling units. If folks don't know what an ADU is, it's like a fancy version of a casita, but it's called an ADU because it's held to the same standards of a home.
Okay.
So it's very high quality. So my legislation looks at historic communities like the one that we're in, where I believe we're in Valley View neighborhood. Right across the street, you have 89106. You have the Heights. You have these neighborhoods that have front yards, backyards, and they could benefit from having a ADU on their property. A lot of times that the local government is either one, too busy, or two, when as residents, we're used to going to the store and buying something, going to the car lot, buy a car, it's in our driveway. So people should have the same experience when they want to put an ADU on their property. They should be able to go buy the ADU and it should be placed on their property. But right now, you have to go in front of city council and they have to approve or deny you putting this on your property.
So share with us share to those that are watching what an ADU is.
So an ADU is it's a fully furnished home. I've been in an ADU and I had a living room, I had a bed, I had a kitchen, I had a full shower, and mine it's only about 700 square feet. Okay. But the way that they shape the room, it's a full house and you're comfortable in it and you could have guests, and so these ADUs could go from 20,000 to 50 to 60,000. Mm-hmm. And so that's an affordable home for a lot of folks. And what I've seen in Assembly District 6, that you have, grandmas who have generations of families living in one home, and they could truly benefit from having an ADU on their property. They may not have the money to buy the $400,000 home right now, but they could definitely go get them a $40,000 ADU and place it on their property and make sure that their grandkids or their niece or nephews have a roof over their head. Right. So basically, it's just streamlining that process so grandma and grandpa could, put that on their property so they could support, multiple generations of family. It's not intended for commercial use. It's not intended for Airbnb use or short-term leasing. It's there to support multi-generational families.
Gotcha. So what communities have these ADUs in them? And then the follow-up question to that is, what has been the either economic impact, and or the social impact of having these ADUs, in their community? Does it? Well, I'll go ahead and answer the question. I'll leave the question there.
Okay. So I don't know too many communities that just have ADUs. They're a pretty new thing. Uh-huh. So I think that's the whole point of trying to streamline it to become a normalized thing. I know that historical communities with non-HOAs could benefit greatly from it. I say some of the hiccups on it right now and how it's impacting communities. And let's talk of maybe the negative ways that it's impacting communities is that these ADUs are being used for commercialization of neighborhoods. And now, you have these neighborhoods that have all these ADUs, and now they almost became a business instead of a residential area. So that's why I'm very keen on that. This is not for short-term leasing. This is just an extension of the home, like how you would see a mother's den or a mother-in-law den. This is not for the commercialization of our neighborhoods, of our communities. This is to just help families. So that is one of the, I think, I guess it's negative to see what perspective you're coming from. It's good for businesses, but communities, that could be the negative impact, that your neighborhood may be commercialized if there's not those legislative restrictions in the legislation.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because we've got to become Nehemiah Project as being one. We really have to become creative at this point. We're that was one of the reasons why I moved to Nevada. I moved to Vegas because, I had left California. And of course, I lived in California. And that time, bread was $5 a loaf and gas was $5.45. And that was in the Inland Empire area. Then of course, when I moved to New Jersey, of course, New Jersey has one of the most expensive property taxes in the nation. And so, when I decided to shift again, Las Vegas was that's the place to be. You don't have the hurricanes, you don't have the tornadoes, you don't have the earthquakes. And the cost of living was relatively, affordable. But now, everything's driving. And allow me to say this, and I constantly keep saying this to many Las Vegans, because it's important that, we all understand that, Las Vegas is no longer the one-horse town. Right. It's no longer centered just at the Strip. Whenever people flew in, it was the Strip, 4.7 mile Strip. And that's what you thought Las Vegas was. But now Las Vegas has expanded so massively because of, now we've got, football, we got NFL, we got the NBA, we got the Major League Baseball team coming. That's a $5 billion stadium. You got the Hollywood studio coming. You got two of them. You got the bullet that's about to hit from LA to Vegas. And so now it is causing this massive growth that really Las Vegas is not accustomed to. And a lot of the growth is happening because you have the influxation of people coming from California and so that's the millionaires, with the professional teams. You're bringing in now millionaires and billionaires. And so they're taking
or foreign investors who buy up our property.
Foreign investors that's buying up the properties, and then you're tripling. $500. Now, I didn't get here when it was $5, so that's a little way back. But when I got here, it was about $8. And so now, rent is like triple. Some places it's 22, 24, 23. And so now we got this massive homeless population, and a lot of them now homeless because they're mentally challenged or anything. They homeless because they cannot afford it. The salary
won't cover it.
Is not aligning with the housing costs. And so when he mentioned it, we were kind of trying to figure this out, and we're trying to see it and understand it. But that's just really creative. We're trying to come up with some creative methods that will kind of help to resolve this mass housing crisis, man. And it's getting crazier. A house, you could get a house here and buy a house, $250,000 at one time, about 2,700 square feet, 300,000 built from the ground up. Man, the average house now is $485,000,
and probably maybe 2,000 square feet.
And maybe you got a few around maybe 29, 27, but
depending on location
and depending on where you're at, and that's crazy. At one time when I was running for the assembly, of course, I'm trying to get situated, and my wife decided, well, let's just buy a house, and so we were looking at the market. right? And man, over here, they had a house that was renting, not even selling, it was renting for like, $3,000, 3,500, and this area,
Right.
So I think, he's coming up with creative ideals, Nehemiah Project, if we're trying to figure out creative
Absolutely.
ideals to provide, ownership or at least rental that's reasonable and rational.
Yeah. So last question then is, so for your policy agendas, items, do you have political allies, to support you with that? And then the question that goes along with that is, are there pastoral or community allies that we could tap into that would support you and your allies? So let's imagine you and, say, Assemblyman Yeager, are both passionate about, and I'm making names, I'm making up, scenario. You're both passionate about mental health issues, and you happen to know, the Presbyterian minister, in Yeager's district. Is there an infrastructure like that we can start to leverage, starting with who your allies are that we can identify, and then being able to identify the pastors in those areas that, we can really, not just talk about the support, but name names and shore up support, for that kind of infrastructure. Because you do have lofty goals and ambitions, and they're worthwhile, and they need, they need support.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, you do need political allies. You need people to sponsor your legislation. And so, yeah, that takes research. You find out what officials support mental health care. I know Sandra Heidegge, she supports affordable housing. So I may want to go to her and like, can I get your support, this sponsor on this bill? So as a legislator, yes, we do have to work the legislation and find political allies. And we didn't get the supermajority. I am a Democrat. And so, my political allies will be Democrat, but we didn't get the supermajority that we expected. We got the majority. So that means that we're going to have to work across the aisle. So
Yes.
Now I need to do my research. Okay, what Republicans care about mental health care?
Exactly.
What Republicans care about criminal justice reform? And I have started that research. And I would say, this is why this is my personal opinion. This is non-political. This is just Jovan speaking. I have all intentions in introducing good legislation that help people. So if you don't want to help people, then good to me.
Right.
And so I hope all the legislation that I introduce, that people just support it because it's the right thing to do. But back, on my legislation had, I 100% need support from the pastors and the community and people to get legislation passed. And, I'll bring it up again. Each committee has a chair. I sit on the Health and Human Service Committee. That has a chair. That chair, it more than likely is going to dictate what type of health bills get passed through the committee. I'm also on Government Affairs, which is over local government. That has a chair. So I want everyone to, what are you passionate about? I'm also on Natural Resources, and that has a committee. So I would do the resources of, do the research of what committees does Nevada have, find a committee that you like, and, put pressure on that chair, because that's what type of support that I need from the community.
Yeah. Because to that point.
We've already kind of shared with Jovan that, he has the pastors, and we're constantly trying to galvanize more pastor support. And, the only thing we shared with him was just, come back to us, let us know, talk,
right.
Inform us, keep us informed, keep us in the loop. Because again, we're not in Carson City. And so, that was always one of the challenges that we've had with certain officials that were in the community. It was that, you get elected, you go out, and then you don't return. You don't keep us informed.
Right.
And so, I can't help you if I don't know.
Exactly.
I can't support you if you don't tell me what we are supporting.
Right.
So that's the support that we know that he will get because of his willingness to come back and keep us informed and keep us in the loop. And then, if it gets to the point, and we've made this known to even Senator Neal and to some of the other legislators, that, let us know in enough time if we need to come and rally and bring a group. We need to bring 50 people, so that we show the support and show the solidarity. Or we need to get online or whatever it is, and only he would know what's needed to push his bill, right? Because he's in the legislation. So, but he has the support from many of the community leaders in this area and this district, and pastors in this district, and we're constantly trying to galvanize more of them so that we grow that base.
Absolutely.
Donald Trump won because of the strongness of his support base.
Right.
And so that's how legislation is passed. And many times it's how people think it's picketing, but it's not necessarily picketing as much as it is the unity. And showing the the unanimity and the support. And when people see numbers, now it speaks volumes.
Absolutely.
One person can talk, but if you're just one person, two people, three people, now it seems like you're just radical, and you're just cantankerous, if you will. But when you get 1,000 people on this one issue, and we're all saying the same thing and moving the same way and showing support, then at that point it speaks volumes.
Yeah, because to that point again, and I may be being naive in what I'm hoping to see somewhere down the line. I would love it to where I could see that, we bring up the issue of mental health, and the bishops, and the reverends, they come together. There's a coalescence, of support for you in that capacity. But I'd love to see Father Garcia over St. Christopher and Rabbi Schwartz over at at his synagogue, and Imam Ali, them being tapped as well. Say, do we all agree on mental health? Matter of fact, we do. Well, we need to talk to our individual political people and say, look, I am, I'm Father Flanagan, and just so you know, Bishop Remsen and I are on one accord in this one, and so is Father Garcia, and so is Rabbi Schwartz. That's going to carry some weight. I wonder if that's the untapped resource, that needs to move the needle and give the support, to because the rightness of there's always been rightness of legislation, for as long as there's been legislation. The inertia and momentum, has always been, the coin toss, and it shouldn't have been a coin toss with as much expertise not expertise, as much weight behind, moral leadership that can be, amassed within the space of the ecumenical community. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Jovan is going to, in legislation, and he just mentioned it, part of that is crossing the aisle.
Right.
Building relationships and collaborations, it's a give and take at some point. He's going to have to work with others on some bills that they find some mutual agreement to, and vice versa.
Right.
In the meantime, again, us being aware in the community as community leaders what he needs.
Right.
And then once he informs us what he needs and the strength that he needs, then of course I think it's easier to rally, because the bills that he's mentioned, basically that for the African American community, that's happening across the nation. That ain't just Las Vegas.
Agreed.
The mental health, that's affecting all of us almost in some form or fashion at this point. Because if it's not your brother, it's your mama. If it's not your mama, it's your grandmama. When you're saying housing is affecting people across the nation. It's just the unaffordable high cost of housing, which is causing massive homelessness. You know, when you're talking mass incarceration, especially in the Black community, it's affecting us across the board. So, you know, I think that if we can galvanize our community,
yes,
you know, him being visible. And the one thing I'm just loving about him at this point is that he's making himself available and he's being visible. And you know, usually once you're visible and you're available, and then if you add the transparency to it, man, we just need you. You know, Bishop McDonald says all the time, you know, you try to put your finger through that wall, you're gonna break it, but you have a better chance of putting a hole through the wall if you ball up all four of the fingers and the thumb, make a fist, bam. So we become more powerful when we are together. But I think what has happened in the past of what I've seen in the time I've been here is that the elective officials in our community only show up when it's time to be elected or reelected, right? And then once they've gotten that and achieved that goal, then they fall off the map, they disappear. We don't really know what's going on, you know, and as you know, Bishop McDonald said, we shouldn't have to call you. You know, you should call us. You should keep us informed. And I think that if he does this during this election cycle or this legislation cycle, I think, man, these people will rally. You know, they were, like I said, he's pulled in a momentum. And he's excited, so he's made them excited. And so, and as long as he's available, and you know, and it's just a phone call. You know, I know when you're in legislation, that's 130 days, 135 days. You kind of on lockdown, right? Yeah. So, and that's a maybe, right? Special session, right. So, you know, but man, listen, when the AIDS bill was going through and the package was being put together, man, we got more calls because we were making calls, but we got calls. And Dina Neal was calling us. Claire Thomas was calling. We put in calls to Chandra Armstrong. Okay, talk to us. What we need to do. What's going on? Send us the bill. Let us see what the package looks like. Is it pro? You know, the historic West Side. What are you doing for the African American community? And so we were constantly in contact. And they were up in Carson City. We were here in Las Vegas. But, you know, I think that's his advantage, those two areas of him, you know, creating relationships, having dialogue, conversations across the aisle. It can't necessarily always be Democrat, Republican.
Agreed.
You know, that's part of our stalemate in U.S. Congress and the House, man, is everybody is siding with their party. And so now American people, we're struggling because you're siding with the Republican agenda and the Democrats are pushing for, you know, the Democratic agenda. And so nobody's crossing the aisle. And if you go back, if I take you back, because I'm a baby boomer, so if I take you back to even Ronald Reagan and you know, Jimmy Carter and all of those presidents back then, the Congress, they crossed the aisle. They did what they could do when they knew certain bills like healthcare, that's affecting everybody. Man, they would cross the aisle and they would come to some kind of agreement or consensus. But now everything is power struck. But I think, man, this guy is the guy for the job. I really do. And I think he's going to do well. You know, I think he's going to make some headways as a freshman. A lot of times you can't. You're more ambitious than you will probably achieve, you know, the things that you're after. But like I told him, man, objective here is, you know, you want to serve in such a way and you want to be present in your community in such a way that you're reelected. You don't want to just be a one-time assembly person, you know, because now when you go in next time, you go in knowing you're aware, you're a sophomore, you've made alliances and relationships, and so now it becomes a little bit, he can navigate a little better, you know.
Agreed.
I say I truly believe in unity. I feel like that's one of my greatest strengths. You know, I'm Baptist. I go to a Baptist church, but I'll go to the mosque. You know, I'll say inshallah. You know, I'll go read the teachings of Buddha, and if it makes me a better person, if it builds a better community, then absolutely, I think we should all come together. And if that is possible, just to kind of answer your original question, absolutely, because the legislation I want to introduce, it should empower all people of all backgrounds and all faiths.
Yeah, because that is my hope. Because the stakes got a little higher as of late, and so I'm envisioning a scenario whereas, because you made a key point when you said, we need to be visible in our support of Jovan. And Jovan needs to know that in a moment's notice, he has that support. Because when a different legislature comes to you and says, look, I can really use some help on immigration policy, you might, that's where you can say, well, look, I got resources, I got backing for this, I can support you, and I can bring the bear on whatever side of the issue that is. But I'm saying someone else might bring that topic up. It's not one of yours, but knowing that you've got the support of the pastors and the community behind you. If somebody does come to you with an issue of healthcare or immigration or whatever else, they know that you are a person to go to and not to be ignored. That's the gold standard. I'd like to see for your term. So that it does become a sophomore term. With more effectiveness than the first one. That's it. Closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. We are going to have a bigger online presence with the Nevada Black Legislative Caucus. So please tap into our Facebook, Instagram, all those things. They are coming. We are going to really take the initiative to have that social media presence during this session. So stay tapped in on that. You can also follow me at Jovan Jackson Action Campaign, and I will be doing updates on bills and having my own presence. And I see education is a big part of this process, so I'll definitely be doing some educational things. And man, it is just an honor to be here, be in this space, and be in this capacity. What I have learned about this position is it's not always the power. It's being available for people, having that presence. People care about that, and I think sometimes we get lost in this role that it's just all about legislation. No, it's not. It's about being present in the community too. So, and I'm glad to learn that as a freshman, not having to learn that later down the road. So, thank you for having me.
Oh, no, thank you, Bishop. Any last thoughts?
No, I think he shared. We wanted to bring him. I invited him, and I wanted him.
He did all right too,
and he did pretty good job.
Right. Yeah.
He kind of did pretty good, and so we wanted to get him to have this platform, and I think he has shown us that he loves his community and he wants to do the best for us and for his constituents. I do know that the Nevada Black Legislative Caucus has a presentation that they're doing on the 18th, right?
Yes. Thank you for right here.
Is it right here in the Nevada Partners here? I don't know what time. Would you remember the time?
I believe it's 1 to 3:30.
1 to 3. Okay. So for you that are listening in the community, you can come here to Nevada Partners on next Saturday, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, the 18th, 1 to 3. And they're going to be sharing. You'll be introduced to the Black legislators that will be going into session this year. And of course, they will also be sharing and presenting their bills so that you can hear from those that are from North Las Vegas and our senators and all of that. So thank you, man, for coming. I told you I got you. Any spaces that I can bring you to, any platforms that I think is necessary for you to be a part of and to be in, so that you can, keep us informed. I'm definitely going to do it. Thank you, Dr. Stevenson. I appreciate you, man. And, you always provide great questions and great dialogue. And so we're going to keep it going.
All right. Thanks so much. And again, thank you all for joining us for yet another one of our, I like to think, home run hitting, podcast discussions. We hope you enjoyed it.